Hello, world, and welcome to the Champions Coffee podcast, where every week we have coffee with an education professional who is out there on the front lines championing students to be all that they possibly can be. I'm your host, Ben Hallett, and I am the CEO and co-founder at Vygo. And Vygo, if you don't know what we are, is a student support platform that helps educators connect their students to their support services, be it mentors, tutors, advisors, or counselors, or anything in between. At Vygo, we believe in celebrating the professionals who make all of these different support and student success services and initiatives tick, which is why we're doing this podcast. Today, I'm quite excited for our guest. When Vygo first expanded into the UK, our UK advisors recommended him as the very first person that we should be speaking with due to his passion for student experience, innovation, and his esteemed position within the industry. Today, we have with us Ian Dunn, Provost at the Coventry University Group. Ian has worked in higher education now for 28 years and 1 month, I'm told, and always focusing in on teaching and learning and improving access and outcomes for students from all backgrounds. He is committed to ensuring that students' time at university enables them to lead meaningful and exciting lives. And in 2016, he was named Inspiring Leader of the Year in the Guardian University Awards. Ian led the development of the university's flexible learning offers, CU Coventry and CU Scarborough. A Coventry graduate himself, Ian is a board member of several multi-academy trusts and other educational bodies, and also a Justice of the Peace in Coventry and Warwickshire. Without further ado, welcome Ian. Hello, mate.
Thanks, Ben. It's great to be with you.
Thanks, mate. It's great to have you. And I believe you have a tea as well today.
I am. Yep, absolutely.
Welcome, mate. Oh, that's a pretty impressive mug, mate.
It's yeah. Perhaps I'll tell you what it says at some point, but
Okay, all right. Well, mate, I mean, to jump into the questions, we've got a bit to cover here, and I've never been under time, so we should get into it. I mean, 28 years and 1 month. What life experiences or moments motivated you to enter into the education space? Can you take us back to the beginning?
Well, gosh, right at the beginning, if you want the truth and honesty here, then it was about a person that I was progressing through my education. I was a postgraduate in the French education system, and needed to get back to this part of the world for personal reasons at that time. And so I contacted my old head of department and asked if I could start my PhD. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Yeah, of course. Yeah, but you've got so much to offer, and I'd like to create a job for you." So right. he did that, and that's how I got back into, and that's how I started working at Coventry. It was the most embarrassing interview process of my life because it was a job that had been created, but it had to go through a formal process. And I was interviewed with 3 other people, and the head of department could only remember my name and none of the other people. So it was like, it was mortifyingly embarrassing.
All right. Well, okay. And well, I guess, mate, what motivates you? 28 years. What motivates you to stay in this space? Well, what makes you get up in the morning and want to come back to education?
Well, we embody this in the values that we have as at Coventry University, and in many other universities. I absolutely know that. But it's that act of transformation, the role that education plays in allowing people to achieve things that they want to achieve, to become the things that they want to become, and then those students who go on to transform not only their own lives but the lives of people around them. That really is pretty amazing, and particularly when I come from a typical Northern English working class background. My family still, I'm the only person who's gone into higher education, there is a very strong view that in those parts of Northern England, particularly in parts of Northern England, people, on the whole, the majority of the population stay within 20 miles of where they were born. that's fine, and I make no comment about that. But the opportunity to become who you are and to live your life how you want to live your life, rather than the way in which your parents and grandparents live their lives, I think is facilitated by really great education, a place where you can find people who are different to you, and through their difference understand more about who you are. That really motivates me, and I certainly wouldn't have been able to be who I am if I hadn't gone into higher education, if I hadn't had that opportunity. And bringing that opportunity to more and more people, making the university truly wide in access, is so important to me. But that's only the beginning of the conversation, because once you've admitted a student into the university, you have a contract, you have a moral obligation, from my perspective, to give them every opportunity to be successful. I accept completely that students fail. If a student fails because they wish to fail, that's absolutely their choice and fine. But if they fail because we've put something in the way as a university, then that's not acceptable. And so the task of demolishing those boundaries. And then we have a third sort of step, which is to make sure that once they graduate, having achieved really high academic potential, then we have to help industry and commerce and the professions understand that they need to be much more open and to diversity too. So we have a sort of moral obligation as leaders of the academic world to go out to them and say, the days of recruiting from 2 or 3 or 4 universities is no longer acceptable. You are limiting yourself and your potential business. So let us help you grow. So 3 stages: access, success, progress.
Yeah, right. And you've actually hit on my 2 favorite quotes. The first one is, education is transformation, and the power of education to transform. And the second one is Lev Vygotsky, where we get our name from. Through others, we become ourselves. And yeah, mate, great answer.
The role modeling part in higher education, I don't think we do anywhere near enough. Role modeling can be a little bit sort of can become too theatrical, can become sort of overpowering. But really, what it's all about is demonstrating, I think, to other people that perhaps some of the things they see as fears for themselves, things they don't want to reveal, things that they are afraid of, other people have perhaps challenged those fears, have taken them on and dealt with them. And by doing that, you can just allow people to release more and more of their potential. For those of us, everyone's got parts of their lives which they've tried to suppress or tried to conform to a different set of norms, and that's not great. You can't be truly successful, I don't think, until you're able to reveal really until you're able to feel who you are and to be who you are. That's very important.
Certainly. All right. Well, mate, so I imagine over the years you've been involved with a multitude of different student experience and student success initiatives. Is there any in particular that stand out to you as being particularly successful, or ones that you're particularly fond or proud of that you could share with us?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you made reference to this in your introduction about me. The one thing that I'm, out of lots of other things I'm very happy to talk about, but one thing that I'm most proud of, in 2010 in the UK, we had a review of tuition fees, called the Brown Review, and it proposed the introduction of tuition loans and tuition fees of up to £9,000. I think the government at the time thought that would lead to a liberalisation, a marketisation of, so that some universities would charge lower fees and some would charge higher fees. That didn't work, patently didn't work in that way. But what was really clear was that the introduction of a tuition fee at £9,000 was going to be disadvantageous to, even though there was a loan available and therefore it was a deferred debt, that was going to be disadvantageous. If you take the 35-year-old a mature learner who is going back into higher education in order to progress with a career, when you've already got perhaps a mortgage or a family that you're bringing up, and you're trying to manage on a modest income, the idea of taking 3 times £9,000 as a tuition debt plus the living costs, I think was always going to be a real difficulty. And so, at the time, working with my then Vice Chancellor, we put together a plan to build a new higher education entity from within the university, so a wholly owned entity, which we now call the CU Group, and it's in Coventry, in Scarborough, and in London, in Barking and Dagenham, and it has now around about 5,000 students studying still at a lower fee than the £9,000. We started in 2012 at a fee of 4,800 on a very flexible, a very different educational model, which allowed students to come in for a 6-week block and then to drop out for 6 weeks. Perhaps they had work, and to come back in and to roll on and roll off. That to me has been that will be one of my things that I'm most proud of. It allowed a very different group of students to access higher education, to maintain a quality of higher education which has very strong links to professional practice, embedding professional awards within the academic study in a whole range of disciplines. And subsequently, as I say, we built the one in Coventry. We borrowed a building from the university that was not being used at the time, and now have a fantastic new campus built for that entity. Subsequently, we built one in Scarborough. Scarborough is a small town on the northeast coast of England, and higher education is 50 miles in south, 50 miles north, and 50 miles west, and each of those journeys is at least an hour. And so you have this community that sort of where higher education was really important: nursing, business, engineering, cyber. There's a large GCHQ cyber center in the town. They need people to be educated. And then subsequently we opened the one in Barking and Dagenham, again a borough of London. Yes, London's got loads of universities, but they're focused in certain parts of the city. And there was no higher education in that borough, which is 11 miles from the centre of London. So again, taking higher education to people that really deserve, I think, and who can become absolutely the agents of change in their communities, and that was really I'm very proud of that.
All right, great, okay, and out of that time, is there a particular student success story, an individual student that you or your team were quite proud to be involved with, that you could share with us?
I think so many. I had two students who right now come to mind. They've just completed their master's degree, mother and daughter.
Oh wow!
And they'll know who they are if they ever listen to this, but I'm not going to know. And they suffered enormous trauma, violent attack, and which in their home, which caused all sorts of difficulty. And they have such incredible spirit, such belief in the power of education. So they've worked with their bachelor's degrees and now their master's degrees. They're just about to graduate with their master's degrees. They've talked to me about continuing their studies because they love it so much. Those two people are super extraordinary and make me smile just to think about it. It makes me smile. They tell me all the time, by the way. They email me to say something's gone wrong, or can you sort this out? That's completely fine, and it's lovely.
Oh, great. Okay, and I know you've been quite a pioneer in the student experience space, and that has had flow-on effects with your team, and you guys have won a lot of pretty amazing awards, Student Experience University of the Year and such forth. What is your 3-year vision for the student support or student experience space? Where are we headed, particularly with 2020 and what we're now understanding about COVID and how it's going to look like maybe in the next 6-12 months? Where are we going in the next 3 years?
wish I could claim here some sort of prescience, sort of that the work that we're doing with you at Vygo and with our other ed tech partners that we started 3 or 4 years ago has been absolutely accelerated. And I'm not in any way suggesting that technology is going to solve all of these problems. It's not true, but it has a really major part to play. The ability to deploy powerful bits of technology that allow students to connect, that allow learning to be supported, and that allow us to start to personalize the learning journey, I think are going to be absolutely the future of higher education. There's some very simple things that the situation is perhaps telling us, which are the end of the formal traditional lecture. I'm not saying lectures are dead, not in any way. Lectures are great if they're the big show and the sort of the presentation of something amazing. But that's not how we use them in higher education. Largely, they're just points of delivery, and we accept the fact that half the population don't turn up to them most of the time. That's not acceptable. So we can get rid of all of those things. We can use technology to much better liberate the content in really interesting and thoughtful ways, which engage people and gamify almost without trivializing, but gamify the learning. That's one thing, but the ability to understand individuals through the points of data that they the traces that they leave through the technology with all the permissions and so on, that's got some over the next 3 years. I would be very surprised if we haven't got some very powerful tools that allow us to take a population of 1,000 students and to create them 1,000 different pathways through the same content, each that starts to tailor and adapt to their personal situation in order that they can all achieve more highly and more strongly. And certainly the opportunities afforded to us that we believe through Vygo are really, and I'm not doing this to sales pitch for you, Ben. You can do that. You can do that yourself.
I can put you on commission, mate.
but the opportunity to bring people together who have similarities, whether those similarities are, I've studied this subject, you're studying this subject, I can support you and mentor you through this subject, or I have similarity of background or similarity of experience or whatever. That opportunity is really important. How we then create those links without them being too manual, I think is going to be really important, and allow the individual to discover for themselves someone who is able to really support them in so many different ways.
Yes, no, definitely. And I think with all the lessons that have come out of the sharing economy and, those things that have, those sort of marketplace dynamics that have played out at scale with technology, I think there's a lot of things that we can take from those platforms, leave the bad bits, adopt some of the good bits about how to have those personalized journeys and relationships at scale with security, with trust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, this is my favorite question. I get to ask everybody, what's a common misconception that you hear in the student success or student experience space?
Gosh, a common misconception. The most common misconception is that students learn in the same way that we learned, and largely those people running universities tend to be a little older than the students by a generation or even more. It's amazing how it creeps on you. We work, for those of us 28 years working in a university, each year the predominant intake is 18 or 19 years of age, and because we do that every year, you forget that you've actually moved on until you look in the mirror. You realize then you've suddenly moved on quite a lot of years beyond where those students are. You might still feel to connect and to believe that we know without asking, without finding out.
Yep. Totally agree. Okay. And is there someone in the education space that particularly inspires you, and why that person?
Well, you've spoken to one of them. Beverly Oliver was one of your guests.
Yes,
Beverly
she was.
is fantastic, and I haven't spoken to Beverly for some time. And also in Melbourne, Belinda Tynan as well at RMIT is an amazing
Great.
an amazing friend. However, I'm going to embarrass my very dear friend Paul LeBlanc at Southern New Hampshire University over in the US. Paul is he is utterly amazing in his ability to bring people together. He would never claim, he's a very modest man in so many ways, he would never claim to be doing the things himself. He just brings really brilliant people together and allow them to create. And that's really unfair on himself, because he sets the sort of tone, and he sets the direction, and he sets them free to do some of those things. He's also a really awesome guy to have dinner with. He loves his food, and he enjoys a good bottle of wine. So Paul's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to tell you that Belinda is looking to come on the podcast in November too, by the way.
Okay, fantastic. Well,
so
please say hello.
I will. All right. And so, is there a positive lesson that you've learnt in 2020 with everything that's happened that you could share with us?
I'm sorry, Ben. I lost you there for a moment. A positive lesson learned in 2020. Yeah.
Yes.
The positive lesson is about believing. When you education for me is not only about the detail. It's not only about the mechanics of all of this. There's an emotional connection. There's an emotional sort of interaction, and when you've built up a bank of experience, believing that in something, even though it may not make you can't necessarily connect all the wires right now, I think is to press on and to take people with you on that journey, and even sometimes to press through some of the constraints that they may bring. I think I've also learned that making sure that you have enough people with you in order to manage the cultural piece is of course, I mean, that's not something specifically to 2020, but it's even more evident, and it's even more true in 2020.
No, definitely.
The culture of university is really is really hard baked, and you need to we need to change a whole range of things. But in order to change things, you've got to take a lot of people with you.
I tell you what, I typically try to pull out one soundbite from the podcast to put on the LinkedIn post, but I'm going to struggle with this one, Nate. Okay, final question. And this is the first time we've actually gotten through every single question, and I haven't had to skip any. So very exciting. Final question for today is, what advice or encouragement would you give a student about to begin their journey at university?
That's the same for. I think it's probably been the same in all time, hasn't it? The believe in yourself, understand that you don't know everything. None of us do. Be humble about the fact that other people know things, and that you can learn an enormous amount from them. But be confident in that knowledge of that you will make sense of all of this stuff, and that out of making sense, that you will go on to transform you'll transform yourself, and then you have by transforming yourself the ability to do all sorts of amazing things beyond there.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So, mate, well, I guess 24 minutes. I think we'll cut it there. So thank you so much for having tea with me this morning, Ian, and sharing your stories, your advice, your visions. And for everybody who is listening to this in post, this has been episode 6 of the Champions Coffee podcast. Thank you very much for listening. And if you'd like to stay updated and hear some of our other guests and Belinda when she comes on, please just go to the Vygo LinkedIn or to the Vygo website. We'll be posting all of them there. So thank you again, Ian.
Thanks very much.
All right. See you, everyone.